In this video, we're going to get Apollo set up to work with Logic Pro X on a Mac. Apollo Twin, Apollo, and Apollo 16s are all installed the same way, so this video applies to all Apollos. Start by downloading and installing the most current compatible UAD software from our website. Follow the on-screen instructions for installing the software and perform any required firmware updates. Restart your Apollo and computer as instructed by the installer. And finally, update your plugin authorizations by launching the UAD Meter and Control panel and clicking on the Plugins pop-down menu. From there, click Authorize Plugins and run the authorizer after it downloads. Now launch Logic. You'll notice that the first time you launch the app, you'll get a dialog saying your audio units need to be scanned. This is normal behavior and only happens the first time you launch Logic after changing your plugins. After Logic has launched, we need to load the Apollo driver. We do this in the Audio Preferences window, which is found under the Logic Pro Preferences menu. Under the Output Device menu, select Universal Audio Apollo from the list and click Apply Changes. In addition to loading the driver, the Audio Preferences window is where you set the I/O buffer size, which affects latency in your system. Change the I/O buffer size in Logic by selecting one of the options from the pop-up menu. It's common to set the I/O buffer low for recording and high for mixing, so latency is minimized during tracking and more processing power is available for mixing. Logic also has a separate buffer setting for plugin processing called Processor Buffer Range, which affects the latency of UAD2-powered plugins. For mixing, you can set it to medium or large. Logic will automatically compensate for any delay in the mixer. For the lowest latency with plugins running inside Logic, you can use the small setting, provided you have enough computer horsepower to do so. Once the driver is loaded and all the buffer settings are made, hit the Apply Changes button on the bottom right corner of the Preferences window for the settings to take effect. Now that Apollo's driver is loaded, Logic automatically sets the sample rate of Apollo's internal clock to match the session sample rate. You can switch to an external clock source such as SpeedIF, ADAT, word clock, or AES-EBU via the console settings panel. Just make sure that no sessions are opened when you do so. By default, the input names of Apollo are not shown, but this is easily changed by going into the Mix menu and choosing I/O labels. Here, we'll tell Logic to use the names provided by the Apollo driver by clicking on the radio button for all inputs and outputs. To do this quickly, click on the first input so that it gets highlighted, and then scroll down to the last output. Hold Shift and then click on the name. Now click on the radio button in the second column, and all inputs and outputs switch over to use the name provided by the driver. Now when you go to the I/O assign on a track, you'll see the names of the inputs in parentheses, which is really helpful. You can also customize the names of inputs and outputs by entering the long and short names and selecting the user radio buttons for those channels. The dedicated monitor outputs of Apollo are output 1 and 2, also called mon left and right on the interface. Logic automatically renames these to stereo output and defaults all tracks to those outputs. Of course, we can use the Logic mixer to address any of Apollo's other digital or analog outputs, including the headphone outputs. Apollo's inputs are easily routed to any track in Logic and appear in the same order as the I/O labels window list. To take advantage of Apollo's unique real-time UAD processing, the console application provides a powerful yet simple view into Apollo. We can launch the console from the application icon in the dock or use the convenient UA icon found in the Finders menu. Just click it and select Console. Routing in the console is very intuitive. It emulates the workflow of a hardware console, but all inside of Apollo's hardware and DSP. All analog, digital, and virtual inputs have dedicated channel strips that default to the monitor output, so we always hear sound, unless, of course, the console's fader is pulled down or muted. Output routing can be modified using the pop-up menus just above the faders. Apollo Twin does not use individual channel output switching. However, you can send audio directly to outputs 3 and 4 from Logic, or use one of the 2 channel sends from the console. You can also copy the main mix to a send by control-clicking on one of the channel faders and choosing the Copy Mix function. When record-enabling tracks, it's common to hear the console application's low-latency path and the Logic software monitor path at the same time. To avoid hearing a signal twice, turn off the software monitoring feature in the audio preferences. This automatically defeats the software monitor path, so we can just use the console application instead. Another powerful tool for Apollo is the Console Recall plugin, which takes a snapshot of the entire console. In addition to providing direct access to Apollo's monitor control from within Logic, it stores all console settings every time we hit save in Logic. This ensures that when you open a session months or years from now, the tracking front end will be exactly the same. Of course, Apollo's DSP resources can be applied where they're needed. So when mixing, the DSPs can be used for UAD plugins running inside Logic. But what's nice is that we can have plugins running inside Logic and have plugins running in real time inside the console application simultaneously. So whether you're tracking, mixing, or mastering, Apollo provides the sound quality, low latency performance, and power for all phases of audio production.